Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Okay, so we're going to do a blast from the past. And I want to know how many of you know the song that starts like this. Ooga chaka, ooga chaka, ooga chaka. Is anybody old enough to know that song? Okay, so the Hebrew song that occurs in our Torah portion actually starts with the same rhythm, but it's ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. And JJ's going to put the words up there at some point. Yes, he's got it. We're waiting. Repeat after me. Ufa ratsta.
Ufa.
Ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. 4 times. Here we go. Ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. Then it's the words yama, vekedma, tzafona, vanegba. So this is they're the directions. And the Jews are going to spread out over the earth, Yama towards the sea, Vekedma, Tzafona to the north, Venegba to the south, to the desert. And these are the directions. And God is making promises to Jacob. So what?
I said so many promises.
So many
Not enough
promises.
time.
So it starts like this. Ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. Let's hear you. Ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. Yama vekedma, tzafona venegba. Ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta, ufa ratsta. Yama vekedma. So the first time, ba, second time, ba, you can do it from the top, little faster. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, sapona venegba. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, sapona venegba. This is where it gets really sophisticated. Ooh, parasta yama vekedma. Ooh, parasta yama venegba. Let's try it. Ooh, parasta yama vekedma. Ooh, parasta. Try that. Oh, 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 parasta. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, tapona venegba, yama vekedma, tapona venegba. Again, yama vekedma, tapona venegba, yama vekedma, tapona venegba. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, tapona venegba. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, tapona venegba. Uparata, yama vekedma. Uparata, tapona venegba. Uparata, 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 yama vekedma, tapona venegba, yama vekedma. Tapona venegba, faster, yama vekedma, tapona venegba, yama vekedma, tapona venegba. Hey, yeah, woo! It's Rabbi Lockheim's favorite song.
I was hoping you'd forget that. So I want to welcome all of you for joining us on this Shabbat here in the sanctuary, and virtually a reminder for those who are here with us virtually that if you have a name for our healing list or our Kaddish list, you can send that to JJ on Zoom or in the comments section on whatever virtual platform that you're on. One other thing, we sent out a notice to our community about the higher infection rate in Pima County. And I just want to remind those who are here, but mostly those who might be a little bit resistant. No, that's not the word. Reticent, that was it. Yeah, we're a little reticent to come in. We have created two sections in our sanctuary off to the side. You still have a great view of what's going on here, but every other row is blocked off, and those who sit in those rows wear masks, and they can keep socially distanced. So if you have any concerns, we have that available. And again, we encourage those who feel comfortable to wear masks to protect those others in our community. So now I'd like to invite Josh's family, because Josh is becoming bar mitzvah tomorrow, to come light our Shabbat candles. Our service is going to begin on page 3 of Mishkan Tefillah, on page 3. Yeah, so Karen, right there on the left-hand side, either one of those readings is great. Either one, your choice. You're in charge right now.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Uh-oh. I burned out the candle.
We didn't plan for that.
You told me to put it in.
Yeah. Yeah, Elon Musk has a new flamethrower, right?
And now everybody blow it out together. 1, 2.
Hold on, I gotta relight this one. Ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We continue on page 12 with Lechuna Ranana. Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Ladonai. Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Letzur Yishenu, Nikmat Hafana B'Toda. Naria, Naria, Letzur Yishenu, B'Zmirach Naria Lo. Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Ladonai. Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Lechune Ranana, Ladonai.
We continue now with Lecha Dodi. It was, we were meeting with a family who's interested in our Israel trip, and we told them if you go on trip 1, you're going to go to Sfat, which is the mystical place in Israel. If you go on trip 2, you get to go shopping. So you have to choose between, your spiritual and your physical needs if you're going on trip 1 or trip 2. But the author of this particular poem lived in Svat, and it's something we used to do at Legacy Orkados years ago when we were much smaller, and it's much easier to do this, where what they used to do in Svat is they used to all dress in white. We didn't do that at Or Kadash, but they dressed all in white. They'd go outside and they would sing this song to welcome in the Sabbath bride. So they got the wonderful spiritual connection with nature, and they were nurtured by the coming in of Shabbat. So as Marjorie, our cantorial soloist emeritus, sings this, feel that interconnection with your spirit and your connection to the coming in of Shabbat.
And just a reminder, this isn't a solo, so please sing loudly. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, shemo tiferet elitila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikeder lezesucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshav v'tehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Idoreri, idoreri, ki ba'orei kumi ori, uri, uri, shir da'eri, kvod Adonai alayit nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. We rise and face the entrance of the sanctuary as we welcome the Shabbat bride. Bo'ir v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha u'sohala, tov emunei am segula. Bo'ir chala, bo'ir chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. In a moment, Cantor Cohen will sing with us, for us. With us, Mizmor Shir, which is on page 22. The rabbis look at this psalm, especially the second half of the psalm, and they certainly understand where it says, if you look at the second paragraph, the righteous bloom like a date palm and they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. So if you're righteous and you believe in God, great things are going to happen. You're going to have many children, or you're going to be very productive in anything you try and produce. But then the next line is, in old age, they still produce fruit, and they're full of sap and freshness. And one of the things the rabbis teach us in their commentary here, regardless of what age you're at, if you're feeling a little infirmed, you're feeling not well, if you have that moment of understanding that you're connected to God and God's great values, then it's going to perk you up and refresh you, regardless of your health in that moment or the age, the number of years that you have.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך פללו, פלא אסון, פלא נבל, פלא היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We continue on page 26 with the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadol ve'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yamad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechonu yomechon u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, ba'agala, u'vizman kariv v'yemaru. Amen. Yesh Shmei Rabbah mevorach la'olam olam me'omaya. Yitbarach, Yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalol Shemei dekodesha brichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tu'esh birchata v'nechemata damiran v'ma v'yemaru. Amen. We rise for the Baruch Hu, page 28. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We remain standing as we continue on page 30. Together, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, made from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into light and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim, page 32, and we continue together. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lay down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We'll rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we'll reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Wait. Okay. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinanta lecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha derech u'shorchecha u'v'kubecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'ktaftam al mezuzot b'techa u'v'yishavecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So we're going to continue with the Micha Mocha. And I think there's a great lesson in the Micha Mocha. And you would think that with God's strength and God's miracles, that just bringing the Israelites out of Egypt, escaping from 400 years of enslavement is enough. And so that was great. They ran out of Egypt, but then they came to another obstacle. And I think this teaches us something important about life, that even though we think we have reached our goal, perhaps there might be more challenges and more obstacles. And the Micha Mocha reminds us that if we have perseverance and we believe that our goal and our dedication to that goal is worthwhile, we'll overcome any adversity.
Torati lo tosefele, Torati lo tosefele, Malchutecha ahuvanecha, Okei hayam b'nei Moshe, Ze'eli anu ve'anu, Adonai lo le'olam va'ed. Hey, kifada Adonai et Yaakov ugelo miat chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai God Yisrael. We're on page 42, but this is a little different. This is, you can find the words to the song that we're going to sing. I can't see those little letters. Page 373, Oh Guide My Steps. It's based on Hashkivenu. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make each day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
We continue our service now on page 44, with Vishamru. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Please rise for the Amidah, page 46, page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללו סלע, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue silently through page 60, either standing or seated.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Adam Melech Adam Lechol Shalom, Ki Adam Melech Adam, Lechol Shalom, Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam, Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levorech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם, תשים
I'd like to remind those who are joining us virtually that if you have names for our healing list, you can send that into JJ or in the comments section on one of the virtual platforms on which you're writing, standing, watching, whatever that may be. Surfing. Thank you. How do you know that? We're not on the coast.
No, we're streaming.
Oh, I'd like to invite Karen Turk, who will be providing the drosh for this evening. Or maybe both of you. That's right there.
In this week's Parsha, Vayetze, Jacob has a dream where he meets and interacts with God. In that dream, Jacob sees a ladder reaching up to heaven with God standing at the top. God promises the land to Jacob so that he can spread out and all his descendants will find blessing on that land. God goes on to say, "Here I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this soil. I will not let go of you as long as I have yet to do what I have promised you."
It is this quote that resonated with us. As parents, it is our job to teach and guide our children and to prepare them for adulthood and a life away from home. When they are young, we watch over everything they do, ensuring they stay safe. As they grow, we step back, allowing them to learn for themselves, make their own mistakes, and develop their own problem-solving skills, all the while keeping a hand at the ready in case they need it. Even as adults, our hand is always available as if to say, I am still here if you need anything.
As God watches over Jacob and his descendants, so too do we watch over our own children. Though they go on to lead their own lives wherever that may take them, we have taught them that we will always be there. They will aspire to reach their own dreams, but should never forget to stay well grounded. Parents, like that ladder, will provide them with the necessary support, and those children will always have a place to come home to.
Shabbat Shalom.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, you're going to teach our next parenting class that we have here. So that was excellent. We're going to continue now with the Mishaberach, which is our prayer for a healing of body, soul, and spirit. If there is anyone in the sanctuary who would like for us to say a prayer on behalf of one of your loved ones or a friend, you can raise your hand and I'll call upon you in a minute. So is that Catherine or Eleanor that's calling out a name? Catherine. Okay, that's what I thought. We do have on our recently added, although they've been on our list for a while, but we have this wonderful connection with Olga Cohen. We pray for her continued healing, and Chuck Wiener, who came out of the ICU and is in a different room in the hospital. So we pray that both of them get better very soon. Anyone else in the sanctuary? Chuck. Thank you. Paul. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, way in back. Thank you. Thank you. Alan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Zachariah, Chava, Elisheva, and Abigail.
Thank you. Deborah Brandon. Thank you. Our Mishaberach can be found on page 253. We also add Deborah Huffman to our healing list as well. Page 253 is the Mishaberach. You may rise physically or spiritually.
Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Please be seated.
So this Friday, I had promised that I would talk about anti-Semitism, which is what I was going to do. And even though we're going to be dealing with some difficult stuff this evening, the next few minutes, we're going to end on a positive, uplifting note. I promise you that, okay? So just stay with me on the journey. I remember after the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting a couple of years ago, I felt particularly afraid as a rabbi during the first Shabbat service after that shooting. I assume everyone remembers 11 Jews gunned down at Shabbat morning services, an elderly couple, 2 brothers, people who cared about Jewish community and Jewish living, the integrity of their holy sanctuary shattered and broken. And I didn't feel afraid at the congregational prayer vigil the next day, and I didn't worry at the community-wide service 3 days after that, particularly because of such a high police presence. But it was on the Friday after the attack, when we had a good level of security, my imagination was nevertheless running wild. I was thinking in a new way about who might want to harm us. And I told myself, all this time I've been complacent, too relaxed, should be much more on my guard. On the other hand, I was angry at feeling vulnerable, furious that harbingers of hate could put me in that situation. And lastly, I was grief-stricken at the innocent life that had been lost in Pittsburgh, thinking of the faces I'd seen on the news and heartbroken that their community had been blown apart. The world since then has not necessarily changed for the better in terms of anti-Semitism. So tonight, I want to help identify who the anti-Semites are and what our response as a community could and should be. Now, why talk about this now, this week of all weeks? Well, to an extent, because of Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, despite the proud history of Jews being allies for blacks in the civil rights movement, West, a prominent musician, has been hanging out an awful lot with Nick Fuentes, white supremacist commentator, while taking to anti-Semitic diatribes on the internet as recently as yesterday, where he extolled the virtues of Hitler. And Irving, a famous NBA player, publicly just lauded a movie with overt anti-Semitic themes, and both of them remain unapologetic. West and Irving are far from the worst anti-Semites, just the most recent ones. And their hateful ideas have to an extent been championed by regular folks, and they've spread to the public square. Now, by the way, before I continue, let me just take one thing off the table tonight. I won't be getting into partisan politics, talking about whether the left or the right of the political spectrum is worse when it comes to anti-Semitism, because when we use our energy at pointing at the other side's bigotry, we waste energy that could be used on fighting that bigotry. By way of stepping out of the American political context, let me tell you a story from the UK. So Luciana Berger was a member of the British Parliament. Just a few years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, I was her councillor on summer camp. Now, Berger had been speaking out of the way her Labour Party had not been dealing with the many instances of anti-Israel outbursts, which were commonly spilling over into anti-Semitism. And in response, when she spoke out, she suffered a barrage of online and in-person abuse. It got so bad that Lucy had to hire private security when she attended the national conference of her own political party. And she finally left the party that summer after trying to fight the good fight within. Thousands of Jews turned up in central London to protest her treatment and also that of Jews in general. Now, after all this time, people, it seems, still hate us. They still question our right to exist, our place in the universe, and our position among the community of nations. And I told myself that we were done with this. So let's just spend a moment classifying the different kind of anti-Semites so we know who we're fighting. Indeed, it might be helpful to imagine yourself as an intrepid explorer such as Charles Darwin in search of new species to classify. You're out there in the wild, you've heard of the different kinds of tigers, but you've never seen them up close. So just swap the word tigers for anti-Semites, and I'll take you now on an unpleasant safari amongst them who roam the dark jungle out there. One particularly hateful species is the neo-Nazi or white supremacist. They're not the same thing, but they do overlap. the men who marched at Charlottesville chanting, "Jews will not replace us." And the worst thing about them, that superficially they look respectable. White shirts and khaki pants. They could have been extras in an advert for The Gap or Banana Republic. No skinheads or swastikas, no KKK hoods. Many of them believe the Jews are shadowy figures who run the world from behind the scenes. They used to be few in number, at least in the shadows, and with the rise of the internet, they've been able to spread their message while at the same time sending their followers en masse to verbally attack people who are publicly Jewish through Twitter or Facebook. Nick Fuentes, the aforementioned white supremacist political commentator, front and center in this week's news, is a particularly odious example. And the Pittsburgh shooter should be defined as one of them. Now, this worldview that the Jews run everything is ridiculous, of course. It reminds me of the old cynical joke. The year is 1933. Two Jews are sitting in an Austrian coffee house reading the news. One is reading the local Jewish newspaper. The other, the notoriously anti-Semitic publication, Der Stürmer. "How can you possibly read that revolting rubbish?" says the first. The second smiles. "What does your Jewish paper say?" The first man says, "Let me tell you, the Jews are assimilating, the Jews are arguing, the Jews are disappearing." The second man, "Now let me tell you what my anti-Semitic paper says. The Jews control the banks, the Jews control the media, the Jews control Austria. So if you believe them, we run the world. If you want good news about the Jews, always read the anti-Semites. We control the banks, the media, and Hollywood on one hand, but those anti-Semites also pounce on stories about Jews who do terrible things in those settings. Weinstein, Epstein, Madoff, lump the wider Jewish community along with them. And the other end of the political spectrum is a species of anti-Semite I call the mistaken sympathizer. The most obvious example in recent years, Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of the British Labour Party. Although there are much worse than him, Corbyn often expresses sympathy for those in the world that in his mind are the underdog. He supported the Irish Republican Army during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and he equates the cause of the Palestinians against Israel with them and groups like them. It leads him to support terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah, who tried to kill Israeli Jews. Israel represents for him the white elite colonial power. It's one thing, of course, to believe Palestinians should live in peace next to Israel in their own country. It's quite another to back those who want Israel's destruction. So the mistaken sympathizer goes to great lengths to erase the 3,000-year Jewish historical connection to the land of Israel, pretends Jews only started taking interest in the land of Israel 2 centuries ago, and suggests Israel's the only modern state that doesn't have the right to exist by wrongly likening the Israeli government to Nazis and saying the victims have become the perpetrators. They also argue with Jews about their definition of anti-Semitism. Mistaken sympathizer, I'm sorry, but the victim of prejudice is the one who defines the scope of that prejudice, not the perpetrator. So the mistaken sympathizer suggests Jews can't really be victims because they've risen to prominence and power in many Western countries. So of course we've done well for ourselves in America and Europe, but why don't you try to go to worship services at synagogues in Paris or Rome, for example, without checking their security in advance? You're not getting inside that building because of the real and present danger which still exists for Jews. And at the heart of the mistaken sympathizer's ideology is the false assumption that Jews cannot suffer prejudice because they pass as white. David Baddiel outlines in his recent book, Jews Don't Count, this idea. And firstly, of course, not all Jews are white. Secondly, even though the Jews who are white can pass on occasion as non-Jews, they still suffer the same anti-Semitism as any other Jew as soon as they congregate in a Jewish institution or at a Jewish event. Ironically, white Jews with no outward signs of their Jewish identity can sometimes uncover anti-Semitism, since anti-Jewish comments are made in their presence with the assumption that they're not Jewish. In a related species to the mistaken sympathizer, the Israel toxifier, the one who makes any association with anything to do with Israel toxic and poisonous. They include many of those who support a boycott of Israeli goods, academics and artists, who threaten Jewish students on university campuses, and the leading principle of the Israel Toxifier is, I don't hate Jews, I'm just against Israel. Well, newsflash, you're making a false separation between those two things. Our people built a society in the land of Israel 3,000 years ago. We yearned to return for 2,000 years after the Roman occupation started, and we mention Israel in our daily prayers. Thousands of Jews travel there every year. Millions more live there. It contains, alongside America, one of the great laboratories of Jewish living. And of course, there are some people, even some Jewish people, who say they believe in Israel's right to exist, but disagree with certain policies of the Israeli government. But it's a fine distinction to make, and it's one which the Israel Toxifier is not often able to make, defaulting to questions about Israel's right to be a country. So once the existential question comes into play, then you're in the realm of anti-Semitism, because no other country's existence is called into dispute. Now, of course, a subset of the Israel Toxifier is the Islamist, the one who believes in a world where everyone should be Muslim and live in a worldwide caliphate, to be distinguished from Muslims who have no interest in imposing their views on others. But the Islamist wants Israel's destruction, is happy to call for the killing of anyone who supports her. The aforementioned Hamas and Hezbollah, part of that species, along with Islamic Jihad, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they don't fit into neat categories of right-wing or left-wing. They're their own thing and no less odious for it. So as we stumble through this disgusting jungle of different species of anti-Semites, we have to add the example prominent in recent weeks of anti-Semitism within the Black community, from figures such as Kanye West and Kyrie Irving. The idea that Jews are part of a shadowy elite which has kept the Black community down. Such incidents do not wipe away the rich history of Jews allying with the Black community in the civil rights movement, and indeed are even more wounding because of it. So having identified the various species of anti-Semites and their habitats, I want to offer some direct responses to their abhorrent actions and attitudes. Firstly, we have to accept anti-Semitism exists, but we shouldn't live Jewishly as if it's the only thing that matters. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha, serve God in joy, Psalm 100 tells us. We have to find the right balance between security on one hand and life, energy, and joy on the other. The Jew who's only fueled by fear of Jew haters with no other positive motivation has in some way given in to them. Related to this, be openly proud to be Jewish. I spoke to a new convert last year about whether anti-Semitic attacks in this country gave her pause for thought regarding her conversion. She said it only made her more determined to be Jewish. Now, if that's the quality of Jews of choice in our community, then that really gives us strength. We should be making even more efforts to educate ourselves and our kids Jewishly, so we know more about the heritage we're fighting for, not retreating for a second, while doing simple things like wearing a Jewish star necklace or kippah in public. In a heart-rending book about anti-Semitism, People Love Dead Jews, Dara Horn, having outlined all the terrible ways Jews have been persecuted, finishes with her consolation, namely Talmud study. Engaging with ancient sages in vexed discussion and debate was her defiant way of proudly doubling down on Jewish life in the face of bigotry. We all have our own subjective path of bringing that consolation and inspiration. We should also fight hate with love. In the words of Rabbi Ari Hart, attention, white supremacists, your fears are correct. We will replace you. We will absolutely, without a doubt, replace you. We'll replace every act of hate you commit with 10,000 acts of love. We'll flood every dark corner of bigotry and lies where you lurk with truth and reason that burns like the light of 1,000 suns. We'll drown your hatred with love, a mixed rainbow multitude of good, kind, decent people, black and white, Jewish and Christian, Muslim and Hindu, Buddhist and atheist, gay and straight, left and right, will stand up to you again and again and again and again, and we shall overcome you. We also can't let go of the idea that if one minority group's attacked, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, gay, black, Hispanic, we need to show up for them. They came to our post-Pittsburgh gatherings. We've a history of supporting other minorities. We need to stand with all of them now. For church, mosque, temple, or community center is attacked, and not only lick our own wounds. On another note, allow for the possibility of change within anti-Semites. Derek Black, a virulent bigot who made popular a white supremacist website, was befriended by 2 Jewish college students, and today fights against the views he originally held. Mohammed Jajani hated Jews and Israelis until his father received compassionate cancer care from Israeli and Palestinian doctors working together in a Jerusalem hospital. He subsequently organized the first official group of Palestinian students to Auschwitz. A final angle: if we ever have another attack, don't publicize the names of the perpetrators. Shout from the rooftops the names and stories of the victims. Hold their memories close to your hearts so their lives weren't in vain. So let's identify clearly who the anti-Semites are wherever they come from. Balance our fear of them with the joy and knowledge of our heritage. Counter their hate with love. Stand up for all oppressed groups, and in the face of anti-Semitism, stay true to who we are. Rise up as Jews in public and never back down from our proud identity. Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to ask Simon Rosenblatt, our secretary, to make a few announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohen. Thanks as well to Rabbi Malcolm, Cantor Cohen, Cantorial Soloist Emerita, Marjorie Hochberg, and Cantorial Intern Sarah Bolt for leading services this evening. Thanks to the Turk family for lighting our Shabbat candles. Thanks also to Karen and Scott for their insightful drush. Special thanks, as always, to Chris Taggart for adding to the beauty of our service through music. And of course, thanks to the tech team in the back for keeping things going behind the scenes. Torah study begins at 8:30 tomorrow morning, followed at 10 o'clock by our Shabbat morning service, when Joshua Turk will become a bar mitzvah. Mazel tov to Josh and his family. If you would like the honor of lighting our Shabbat candles or presenting a drash on a Friday night, please contact Eileen in the office. For those who have experienced the loss of a loved one, join us this Tuesday, December 6th at 11 a.m. for Living Through Loss during the holidays. Our moderator will be Fran Haggerty. We'll gather for a nosh and pleasantries, and then at 11:30, we'll move to the Schlanger Chapel for our hour-long discussion. Sign up today to join in on this important discussion. If you're interested in our spring Israel trips with Rabbi and Marshall Lachheim and Cantor Cohen, and you missed the informational meetings, please contact the office. The registration and deposit deadlines are coming up very soon. So if you're interested, you're running out of time. There are several events coming up this month in conjunction with Hanukkah, including events for families, young children, not so young children, and a special concert for the entire community on Saturday evening, December 17th. The concert will include community cantors, guest soloists, the Southern Arizona Symphony Orchestra, and a choir of adult and youth singers from Congregation Anshe Israel and Kolami Synagogue. Please be sure to see your weekly emails for more information and to register for those events that require registration. And for the 20s and 30s among us, don't forget the Latke Fry next Sunday, the 11th at 11 a.m. Of course, see your emails or the website on an ongoing basis for information about all our activities and our Jewish lifelong learning classes. Be sure to patronize our Judaica shop. Proceeds benefit our religious school and the Madrachim program. This Sunday, December 4th, the Judaica Shop will be hosting a Hanukkah and Artisans Market featuring everything for Hanukkah and showcasing high-quality items created by local Jewish artists. This will run from 9 until 1 in the Sidechester Auditorium right back there. After the service, please be sure to return your prayer books to the book rack. On behalf of the staff and leadership of Kolami Synagogue, I wish you a Shavua Shel Briut, Osher, Ahava v'Shalom, a week of health, happiness, love, and most importantly, especially now, in the deepest meaning of that word shalom, peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So to keep on that positive note, we're just going to take a moment to hear from folks about good things that have happened this week, however big or small. Hands up if you're having a bar mitzvah this week. Thank you, Josh, for contributing to our list of good things. Anyone else want to mention something just briefly, something good that happened this week? We'd really love to hear it. Just before we say yes, Aaron. 1 year old today, Mazel Tov. Fantastic. This is a great thing to add to the list. Let's hear two more things, good, positive things that happened. Even if it was just a little thing, it would be wonderful. Well, yes, please. Okay, you walked away from a rollover accident. It's amazing to see you here. Fantastic. That is really, really great. Let's hear one more positive thing that happened. Yes, please. What? I didn't hear that. What was that? You passed the bar exam. Amazing. Okay. And the raps there on the back are leading the Lutger Fry for young adults next Sunday. So 11:30. We're going to sing the Shechianu blessing together to celebrate all of those things.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Please provide any names from our online community if you want to add for Kaddish. We turn to Aleinu on page 282. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, l'teikenu l'yotzei b'reshit, shelo asanu ki goyei haratzut, velo zamanu k'mishpachat ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, l'gorol aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim l'nei melech mochei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech hakol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
Please be seated for a few moments before Kaddish. If you are here in particular this evening to remember a loved one and you'd like to join me at the front, you can take a moment to weigh one of these stones in your hand as you remember your beloved. place it on the table and let me know who you are remembering this evening. Please come forward if you'd like to do that now. Before we recite Kaddish, we think of those who have died this past week. So sad to announce the death of much beloved around Tucson Jewish community, Rabbi Richard Safran. Rabbi Safran's funeral will be in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There might well be a memorial service back here in Tucson, but those details are still to be decided on. We also think of those who died in the past month. Aline Kaminsky-Crum, Marty Derrickson, Jerry Schulman, Erin Callahan, Mary Stewart. As part of the Bar Mitzvah of Josh Turk, we also remember the victim of the Holocaust that he's particularly connecting his Bar Mitzvah to, Tommy Weiss. Those whose yard sites are observed this week, Philip Abel, Edwin Abramson, Luana Faye Ash, Milton Axelrod, Rita Brucker, Joshua B. Bynes, Rose Chazen, Joseph Cohen, Dan Dale, Lou Davis, Henry Elwood, Bernice Bunny Epstein, Jack Feldman, Francis Glickman, Ben Goldberg, Herbert Goldman, Howard Goldwyn, Donald P. Golos, Fanny Goodman, Benjamin Emmanuel Gordon, David Grossman, David Hirsch, Sidney Hirsch, Donald Hochberg, Leon Joseph, Paul Kahn, Harry Keller, Morris Kenigsberg, Burton Koff, Joseph Larace, Joseph Levine, Irving Migdal, Abby Miller, Donald Millstone, Nelson Mintz, Abraham Morantz, Hyman Meyerson, Ida Meyerson, Marilyn Nadel, Theodore Panich, Shirley Pfeffer, Alan Rabin, John Reich, Benjamin Rosen, Nathan Rosenfeld, Jeffrey Rosenthal, Hyman Sayer, Sarah Schiffman, Elizabeth Schlosser, Monica Schumann, Janice Shapiro, Hope Scheikint, Earl Smart, Murray Spilker, Sam Tanklewitz, Benjamin Tishman, Lena Weinstein, Jacob Weiss, Isidore Whitehill, Samuel Willens, May Rubel, and Nevin Zweitel. We also add names from the online part of our community. Sid Kramer, friend of Norma Cohen, who died suddenly this past Sunday. And if there's anyone here in the sanctuary with us who'd like to add a name for Kaddish, now would be the moment. Okay, thank you so much. Would everyone please rise to support the mourners as we say Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ba'amad divrach kirutei v'yamlech malchutei. V'chayechol v'yomechol v'chayechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shemer Allah u'barach v'olam alamer almayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitada v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shemeh dekutsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Dabiran v'alma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shalom Abraham min shemayim. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom v'imma. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
V'imru, 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 v'imru. Amen.
We're going to close with Ufaratsta that you learned at the beginning of the service. When I was at camp, we would divide the group into 4, and we would have Yama, the Kedma, Tzafona, the Negba. And every time you said your direction, you had to jump up, but we're not going to do that. Here we go. Ufaratsa, 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 Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Ufaratsa, 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 Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Ufaratsa, Yama v'Kedma. Ufaratsa, Tzafona v'Negba. Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Yama v'Kedma, Tzafona v'Negba. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'atzavanu v'shabbat kodshah v'ahavot ratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ihu yom techilah למקראי קודש, זכר לציון מצרים. ואותנו קידשת מכל בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Motzi lechem min haaretz.
We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.